Hello everybody in the chess world. Today I'm going to show you what to play with white against the Albin Countergambit, and it's gonna be a shorter video than usual because I'm gonna offer you pretty simple stuff and really easy, but I'll offer you two very different options. I think you're gonna like that. Well, as usual, I'll first show you what I'm talking about. After d4 and d5, c4, this Queen's Gambit. Well, e5 is the Albin Countergambit, this kind of classical. And after, d takes e5 is obviously like the most logical continuation and the main line for white. Of course, we don't want to take this, and Queen takes d5. They're hitting our d pawn. They made both d5 and e5 central breaks. Knight c3, winning a tempo is still not possible because our d pawn falls. D takes e5 is the main move, and we're thinking, well, what is black doing? If they play d takes e4 now, we will simply exchange queens and then be fine. But of course, the idea is d4. So, okay, it's just a somewhat artificial line, but this is, I think, is once in a while even played by the wildest GMs like Pausethevideoandthink or Ivanchuk. So, well, the first thing is that when we first see this, knight on f3 is logical continuation. Attacking the d pawn already protects the e5 pawn. Black does the same. Knight on c6 protecting the d pawn. Well, they want some space in the center, and maybe someday they'll try to go for knight e7, knight on g6, recover that pawn, having something. Now, the first time when we don't know, the theory or the ideas behind this counter gambit, the first move that comes to our minds in here is e3, because we're thinking about it like, okay, if I play e3, I'm kind of forcing black to define the situation, because they cannot, they could play bishop on c5, but I don't know, it's kind of artificial. And of course, check is the right move. We see that if they were to take, hey, queen takes, do whatever, maybe you don't want to place the knight back, you want to take with the queen, with the king, bishop takes, I'm a pawn up, there are no more castles for black, this is a disaster. But of course, the oldest trick, in the book with the Albin counter gambit is that now they have bishop on b4 check, and if we play bishop on d2, they have this intermediate f takes on e3, where if we were to play bishop takes on b4, they'll even have this, pawn takes f2 check. We cannot take that pawn with the king because we're obviously losing our queen. And if king on e2, they'll exchange and play knight takes b4 and be much better out of the opening. Okay, this is very super known, but the only reason that why I'm showing you this is because the first move that I want to offer you all here is a3, which is one of the main lines. So, of course, I'm sure most of you knew this classical boom trick, really known. But the thing is, you can see, considering that after a3, we are kind of threatening a good e3. Just to tell black, okay, your lies will be over. Your last lie was that if I play the logical, e3, which the idea is to clarify the situation. After e3, we're going to have, because think about it this way, whenever we play e3, again, if they take, will be super fine. Even if they were, let us say that now is white's turn to move. I play e3. They play bishop on c5. Well, I have b4, let us say like this. I have b4, and when they go back c5, and I win the pawn on d4. Even if that didn't exist, let us say, for some reason that wasn't possible. Well, anytime that black allows e3 followed by e takes d4, that means that I already exchanged this e3 pawn, so the e5 pawn is no longer a double pawn, it's easier to defend. You can see why a3 is one of the main moves. It makes a lot of sense. So the main move for black is bishop on g4. And again, really logical, because they're thinking, okay, really nice a3, by white, but it's not a development move. We haven't developed a piece with the a3 move. Well, black is saying, I just want to blow up your knight on f3 and then play knight takes on e5 and just be fine. So now, of course, one of the main moves is knight on bd2. And this is, a mirror thing that both sides do quite often in this Albin counter gambit. Black, if we let him, might play like this, development and going after this e5 pawn. White, if they let them, might go like this, development, and going for the g4 pawn. So quite logical moves. But I like much better bishop on g5 instead of knight on bd2. And I think it's more right to the point, more compromising for black. So after bishop on e7, I like this bishop on f4. Again, if we were to play bishop takes on e7, it's not an awful move, but they can... I mean, we're helping black to recover the pawn on e5, either by queen takes on e5, you know, already hitting that, or even knight takes on g takes on e7, you know, just going again then for knight on g6. So I like this retreat, and now I think it's I think again black has to commit a little bit. I think they should play this g5 move, which on one hand seems quite cool. On the other hand, well, I imagine black is going to castle long, but no more pawn shield for a possible short castles. So after bishop on g3, I saw this h5. Okay, of course they're threatening h4 trapping the bishop, but of course we play h3. We make loft for this bishop in here, and we ask this bishop to play something in particular. And meanwhile, this bishop, this dark square bishop that we have here, well, is already protecting this pawn. So now bishop takes on f3. It's not winning the d5 pawn, so that is why bishop on e6 is the main move. And meanwhile, well, black keeps their pair of bishops, and they are hitting our c4 pawn. In here, for example, queen d3 and queen c2 are both definitely good moves. I like a little bit more this queen on b3. It's of course the idea is not really to hit. Well, I mean, on the one hand, we are hitting this b7 pawn. The main move will be queen on d7, which it's indirectly protecting the b7 pawn. After this, we wouldn't want to take this because, of course, rook on b8, and then they'll take on b2. But for example, if instead of queen on d7, black were to play queen on a5, knight on a5, is the classical idea. After queen on a4 check, you know, check, and at the same time attacking the knight, they have c6, allowing the queen to protect the knight. Well, we'll have knight bd2 here. I mean, of course, we cannot, if you're thinking about before, watch out for this pawn, you know, we're just blundering that. But knight bd2, and I think that white is already better. And going back to the, that's a correct move, queen on d7. Again, I think knight bd2 is a good move. I mean, we're playing solid with white, just keeping our extra pawn, developing the pieces. And now, for example, after long castles, I think we should just mirror that and play long castles. And here white is actually quite better. I mean, this is quite a simple way to play against the Albin Countergambit. But I told you that I wanted to offer you two very different approaches to this opening. So, as I show you in other videos, for me it's really normal to play first knight on f3 here instead of the c4 move, knight on f3. But after knight on c6, hey, this is the same thing as I show you in the Chigorin video. If I play c4 now, which is my main move, e5 is totally possible. I mean, there are some differences. For example, here instead of d takes e5, we could play knight takes on e5, and this is probably the best move, one move that I play quite often. Of course, it has to be said that if we play d takes on e5, of course, after d4, we're just immediately transposing to the main line. And here, as I said, there are a lot of moves that I like this a3. Now, the thing is, there are some differences in this particular position. Instead of c4, let us say that you're sure that your opponent plays the Albin Countergambit. Well, here is the moment where I'd like you to offer you all this move that has nothing to do with the rest. You can actually play bishop on e4 as some sort of anti-Albin Countergambit. I mean, after this move, I mean, there is no more e5. And there are two very good things about this. I have played this a lot. There are two very good things. Okay, on the one hand, as usual in chess, we give something, we take something, and we give something. maybe bishop on f4 is not our main move, in schemes in the normal, queen's gambit, let us say c4 on e6. Maybe, like me, you don't play with the bishop on f4. Maybe you play with the bishop on g5. Maybe you play, I don't know, e3 with the bishop inside of the pawn chain. This is all fine. But as I said, we take something, but we give something. So, I mean, the Albin Countergambit players, after bishop on f4, are like, hey, there's not a chance to play e5 almost ever again. Now, what happens is now you're both a little bit out of book and out of your comfort zone. But there's a second pretty cool thing, which is, well, now it's more like a normal queen's gambit. I mean, once we play c4, it's going to be, a queen's gambit. Hey, but the knight is on c6, so the c-pawn is blocked. Black won't have, the c5 active move, nor the solid c6. And normally when black plays like this, with a knight on c6, blocking the c-pawn, well, they do that because they will have some e5 available. So, I mean, you see what I'm talking about. Like, they won't have c5, they won't have e5. This is obviously totally playable for black, but hey, nothing to do with normal queen's gambit positions, and we see nowhere near, the normal pawn breaks for black. So, hey, again, I love this a3 against the main line of the counter gambit, but I actually really like this bishop on f4, also in a psychological way. So I want to show you a few lines from this position, in which, well, I think the knight on f6 will be, or e6, let us say, but will be a main move. Hey, bishop on g4 is probably the most Chigorin or Albin Countergambit-like move, just developing the bishop, trying to blow up the knight on f3. But with the bishop on f4, e5 is still not playable, so I wouldn't really recommend this bishop on g4 for black. And hey, we can play even e3, just we're auto-pinning our knight on f3. e5 is still not possible, so let us say e6, c4. What I want is this. What I want is finally to play c4 and transpose into a declined queen's gambit with the bishop outside of the pawn chain on f4. But again, no e5, no c5 for black. So they're a little bit more passive. Let's say bishop checks, knight on c3. They could blow up that. I don't like it for black. Just b takes e3, great center, and rook on b1 to attack on b7. Now that the bishop is outside of the pawn chain, if they play like this, again, super center. Want to play like this and hitting here, I don't like it much. But at the same time, if they play knight on f6, I remember that in a game I was like, okay, I'll play rook c1. Now I have options. I'll probably, if they take on c3, I'll take with the rook, use the c file, I develop the rook. If you see any of these positions with a computer, they'll probably tell you it's roughly equal all the time. But it seems like, in comparison with the normal Queen's Gambit, decline, there are always good things for white. And let us say, I don't know, castles. We might, I think before developing our light square bishop, we should ask this bishop what to do. I think they will probably play bishop on h5 instead of making development easier for ourselves. Once again, in a lot of lines and in other lines, well, black does this because they have e5 available, and then if we take it, the knight takes and hits our queen. Well, now we have the bishop on f4, so they cannot do that. So again, if we think about the normal ideas, that is kind of not possible. So bishop on h5 will be more logical. And now I will ask that bishop to take the rook, and take it with the rook. Why not? Queen on e7. We could play b4 here. I like that move. I also like this typical thing, bishop on h2, going away, so there's no way to, it's out of reach. I don't know. These are good positions. Let us go back and, from this position on, instead of this more Albin Countergambit or Chigorin defense bishop on g4, see a more normal knight on f6. Once again, I'll play e3. I want to play c4, knight on c3, play normal chess, knowing that black doesn't have e5 nor c5 on the horizon. For example, e6, c4 again. We can see again bishop checks. Bishop on d6 is definitely possible. we can take it. Sometimes black chooses to take with the c-pawn, but in case of queen takes, I don't know, just normal chess, you know, just knight on c3. If a6, well, sometimes black's idea is to take here and then play b5. So it will be logical to play b3 just to opposing to that. Now, if d takes e4, we can take with the b-pawn. I don't think I would even waste a time on that. I will just play bishop on d3. I'm not afraid of d takes c4, bishop takes c4 and b5, because that will leave the c file so weak, you know. I'll just go away with the bishop, then I'll play castles, place a rook on c1. When this pawn is, you know, like behind and they cannot play c5, I'm so comfortable with white. Or going back after the c4, bishop on b4 check. Probably you'll see more often this move. Well, once again, knight c3, castles, bishop on d3. Here, if they exchange, this is typical, you know, typical from any Queen's Gambit decline. Black is waiting for white to develop the light square bishop, so when they do, they take on c4, trying to make him lose a tempo or half a tempo. Okay, you develop the bishop, now you go to c4. And they could take this opportunity to play knight on e4, but once again, queen on c2, just protecting on c3, hitting on e4. I only see comfortable positions here, really comfortable positions here for white. In general, I don't even see great position for white. I just see really passive positions for black. So I think it's up to you. Again, the psychological move, I think it will be bishop on f4. Really annoying for the Albin Countergambit or Chigorin black players. And again, if you're going to the pure Albin Countergambit, I think that a3 is a really simple way to, instead of getting into the chaos that normally the black players want, we can just play this. It's a simple line, and you usually get a pretty comfortable position, as well as a considerable advantage. So I hope you liked the video, and thank you for watching. I'll leave my cat as usual to ask you to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.